The poem Follower deals with memory as a means of dealing with the present. So looking into the past as a means of sort of commenting on the present. And the poem is certainly about cultural identity, and Heaney celebrates his connection to Ireland and his Irish cultural heritage. And the significance of the title is, quite apt, really, that he's talking about looking at his father, this memory of his father when he was a child, looking at his father, and he's following in his footsteps. Okay, and we can look at his father as himself, but also as a representation of Ireland, and that Heaney wants to follow in his father's footsteps, and in doing so, pay respect to his connection to Irish culture and heritage. There are a number of poems where Heaney uses dirt, earth, soil, the Irish boglands to represent digging into Irish history and Irish culture. And this is what he's doing here. So in the poem Follower, he admires his father's working of the land. He ploughs it with precision. And this is a metaphor for his connection to Irish heritage. The act of ploughing the land is Heaney's way of showing his father knows Ireland intimately, and Heaney admires his father for his commitment to his cultural identity. And there's a sense that he feels that he could never achieve uh, the abilities of his father. He looks up to his father and thinks that he could never match his father's ability to do that. The tone of the poem is nostalgic. He is looking back fondly at this moment, and it's celebratory. And Heaney pays homage to his father. So he remembers his father with a sense of awe. And the concept of tradition is important, as Heaney often expresses his inadequacy of maintaining the agricultural traditions of Ireland. Farming the land and working the earth equated to maintaining the culture and traditions of the Irish people. Heaney's not a farmer, and the world of Ireland was changing. So, post World War II, the agricultural agrarian society was shifting towards more of an industrialised society, as many countries were doing at the time. And this meant that literally that Heaney wasn't going to live on the land and work the land as his father did. And, we know he's become a poet. Heaney's not a farmer, and the world of Ireland was changing, so Heaney must look to use his poetry to pay respect to his father and to maintain the rich traditions of the Irish culture. There are a couple of things that Heaney uses in this poem to convey that idea. And one of them is that he uses sailing imagery, and he likes to use that a bit in a number of his poems. So the means of showing his respect for his father is done through simile here. His shoulders globed like a full sail strung. So we get this through this simile. We get this idea that he's admiring his father's strength, and that he has ultimate control, and that's shown. There's between the shafts and the furrows. So obviously we've got the rises and falls of the ploughed land there. So we've got this sort of sense of image of waves that are being carved into the field. And he says that the horse strained at his clicking tongue. So here you've got this oral imagery, clicking. So it's sort of the onomatopoeia being used there, but it's showing that his father is able to control this really strong animal, not through using a whip, but through the relationship he has with the horse, and just a simple click of the tongue, and that allows for a precise movement of the horse. Then we have this truncated sentence, this short sentence, an expert, which really presents his impression in a matter-of-fact manner, and it shows his admiration for his father. We then have some farming terminology. He'd set the wing and fit the bright steel-pointed sock. So he's talking about setting the device of the plough that actually breaks up the land. And it said the sod rolled over without breaking. So here we have more images of water. So it's like the plough dragging through the earth, sees, you know, dirt roll off from either side, and it's like the prow of a boat breaking through the water, and you know you've got that image of water spilling on either side, and further down it actually talks about the sod being polished. So the sod is where the dirt breaks off, you know, and there's like clumps of dirt roll off the end of the plough, or not to the left and to the right. But rather than, you know, he's talking about dirt, but he's saying they're polished, and so it's saying that sort of reinforces the expertise with which his father is able to plough the land. And so it's a very strong image that's presented there. And then we can look here at the next line, and it says the sod rolled over without breaking. So we've got that more water imagery. And then at the head rig, and that's the end of the line. So you're ploughing the earth and ploughing the field. And when you get to the head rig, that's the bit where you turn around. And Heaney uses enjambment here. So you'll notice that the lines above all have a full stop, or this one has a full stop and this one has a full stop at the end of the line. But this one imitates the movement of the horse and ploughing the field, and so we get that image of ploughing occurring. And so what Heaney is actually doing is he's metaphorically ploughing the paper to show his respect for Ireland, and the term is enjambment, and it's quite a clever method, isn't it? And shows that Heaney himself is an expert in what he's doing, that he has such control over, you know, the way he structures his poems, that he is able to pay respect to his father, to his heritage, and to his Irish culture. So with a single pluck of reins, the sweating team turned round and back into the land. So more of that authority and control. His eye narrowed and angled at the ground, mapping the furrow exactly. Now, we have a change in person here. We now have first person. I think it did start with my father, but he was focused on the father in this part of the poem. And now we move to the second half of the poem, and we've got a personal perspective. And I stumbled in his hobnailed wake. So he is telling us that he, as a young child, walked behind, you know, and he was walking on the rises and falls of the ploughed land, and he was tripping over and, you know, and trying to keep up, but he wasn't quite capable of doing that. So we see that image too of the land like this, and he fell sometimes on the polished sod. Sometimes he rode me on his back, dipping and rising to his plod. So here we've got another image of you know, it's almost like perfection of waves, isn't it? You know, replicating the rise and fall, or the rhythm of the process, and that's reinforcing the rhythm of the poem as well. I wanted to grow up and plough, to close one eye, stiffen my arm, and all I ever did was follow in his broad shadow around the farm. So he leaves a mark on the land, you know, his broad shadow. He's strong. Has a big influence on the field, but also, you know, he contributes to the traditions and the cultures of Ireland, and that's what he's presenting there. And he wanted to, you know, Heaney wanted to have that same command, and he wanted to have the same authority, and you know, he really respected that. I was a nuisance, tripping, falling, yapping always. So interesting little use of describing words there to explain how he perceived himself. And then we have this final sentence, but today it is my father who keeps stumbling behind me and will not go away. So here he's talking about the memory of his father. So we could say, you know, in a literal sense that, you know, that his father has grown old and frail, and therefore Seamus Heaney has to look after his father. He's the strong one now. But really what he's saying is that that's the power of memory that keeps him going. That his father has instilled in him so much of who he is. You know, he has shaped his identity that that you know it will remain strong with him. So what we see here is that Heaney's presenting a poem where he's paying homage to his father, but to his country of Ireland, and he's saying that I can't plough the field. That that is not who I am, and the world has changed. And so the way that he's going to pay his respect to Ireland and to his father is through poetry. He's going to plough the lines on the page, or plough the page with his lines. The structure of the poem is iambic tetrameter. So when we talk about Shakespeare's poetry, we always talk about iambic pentameter. And pent is 5, so iamb, you know, there are 2 stresses. So basically, for iambic pentameter, there are 10 syllables per line. So iambic tetrameter means there are 8 syllables per line. So if you count out, my father worked with a horse plough, if you count the syllables, there are 8 syllables, and it's not perfect throughout, but it certainly has that structure. And then it's got an AB rhyme pattern, and you know, plough and furrow, strung, tongue, wind, breaking, sock, pluck. You know, there is that use of a rhyming scheme, and the iambic tetrameter. Both of those create a rhythm, and we get a sense that it's just a constant, steady, calm sort of rhythm and sort of tone to the poem, and that's reflecting the methodical, measured pace of the ploughing of the field. So it's done with quite precision. And you know, when you first look at Heaney's poetry, you think, oh, it's pretty straightforward. But when you start to look at that, you have to pay respect to those type of things. So the poem is really about memory, the use of memory as a way of maintaining cultural traditions and heritage. And you know, here it says, you know, it will not go away. So it that sort of does tap into the contextual concerns of the Troubles, and that the British were trying to pretty much erase Irish culture and tradition, um, and this is a way of commenting on that and saying that it will not be, you know, memory is stronger than the powerful forces of the British Army. But ultimately, we're really looking at Heaney using his memory, looking back nostalgically on a time past, and his father as a representation of all the people before him that have ploughed the land, worked the land, and made Ireland the country that it is, the wonderful country that it is.